I'm Emily, 32, female. I live in a decent-sized city, working as a marketing manager for a mid-sized digital agency. It's a competitive field, but I'm good at what I do. I specialize in brand strategy and crisis management. I share an apartment with my younger sister, Sarah, who's my best friend and a freelance graphic designer. Our life is good, built on hard work and mutual support, and I was content with it. I thought I'd finally met a great guy, but I learned the hard way that his family's old money came with an old-world cruelty I couldn't have imagined, and it pushed me to make a decision that would cost them everything. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. I met Ryan Thompson at a business tech conference. He was a keynote speaker, a management consultant for a high-end firm, and he was brilliant. He was 33, tall, and had that easy, casual confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about a bill in his life, but he tempered it with a genuine curiosity that I found incredibly attractive. He wasn't the usual arrogant type I'd run into. He actually came up to me after I asked a challenging question during the queue in a session. That was a sharp observation. He'd said, his smile genuine. Most people don't catch that nuance. Emily Wright. He'd read my name badge. We ended up talking for an hour, skipping the next panel entirely. He was funny, self-deprecating, and surprisingly down-to-earth. We exchanged numbers, and our first date was that weekend. The first 6 weeks were a blur. It felt different from any relationship I'd ever had. He was consistent. He called when he said he would. He planned dates that weren't just about flashy restaurants, but also long walks in the park and visiting niche bookstores. He listened. He remembered that my sister, Sarah, had a big portfolio review coming up and sent her a good luck text with a coffee shop gift card. My background is very different from his, and I was open about it. We weren't poor, but we were solidly, proudly middle class. My dad was a high school history teacher, and my mom was a nurse. They had worked their entire lives to give me and Sarah a debt-free college education. Our family values were centered on education, empathy, and paying your own way. Sarah and I were close. We were each other's biggest cheerleaders. She was incredibly talented, a graphic designer with a sharp eye for aesthetics, but the freelance world was a hustle. Ryan, on the other hand, was vague about his family. He'd mentioned Thompson Holdings as the family business, but he always pivoted the conversation. It's my dad's thing mostly. He'd say, they're a lot. Let's just focus on us for now. I interpreted this as him wanting to be seen for himself, not his family's money, which I respected. I Googled Thompson Holdings once. The results were overwhelming: real estate, high-end department stores, private equity. They weren't just well-off, they were wealthy, the kind of old money wealth that feels like a different species. It made me nervous. After 2 months, he finally brought up the dreaded meet the parents scenario. So, my parents are having their annual welcome spring dinner next Saturday, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. It's an event, formal, and they want you to come. He paused, then added, and I'd love for you to bring Sarah too, my mom. Well, she insisted when I told her you two were close. I was floored and suspicious. She insisted you bring my sister. Yeah, she said it would make you more comfortable, Ryan said, though he didn't look convinced. Look, I know they can be intimidating, but it would mean a lot to me. Please say yes. Sarah was more excited than I was. This is a big deal. It means he's serious. We have to get new dresses. That Friday, we spent money we probably shouldn't have on 2 elegant, understated dresses. We wanted to look classic, professional, and respectful. We weren't trying to be something we weren't, but we also didn't want to show up looking like we didn't understand the assignment. When Ryan picked us up, he looked impeccable in a tailored suit. Wow, he said, looking at us both. You both look perfect. The drive was long. We left the city, then the suburbs, and then we were on a long, winding road flanked by old stone walls. Finally, he turned into a driveway marked by enormous, wrought-iron gates that swung open silently. We drove for another full minute up a gravel path lined with ancient trees until a mansion, loomed into view. It looked less like a home and more like a university library or a small museum. Ryan, I whispered, my palms sweating, This is not a house, it's a compound. He gave a tight laugh. I told you, they're a lot. I remember gripping Sarah's hand as we walked up the massive stone steps. She squeezed back, her eyes wide. Okay, she muttered, just be yourself and don't spill anything. I felt like I was walking into an audition for a role I never wanted, and I was right. The moment we stepped inside, a uniformed housekeeper took our coats. The foyer was vast, with a marble floor that clicked under my heels and a chandelier that was probably worth more than my car. Paintings that looked depressingly important hung on the walls, each with a small brass light illuminating it. Staff, all in black and white, circulated with trays of champagne. Ryan led us into a grand sitting room where his parents were holding court. Robert Thompson, the father, was tall and severe, with a perfectly white head of hair. He looked like a casting director's idea of a business titan. He gave me a handshake that was less a greeting and more a test of bone density. "Emily, you're in marketing." He didn't say it like a question, he said it like a diagnosis. "Yes, Mr. Thompson, I'm a marketing manager at a digital agency." "Digital," he grunted as if I'd said finger painting. He then turned to Sarah. "And you are?" "I'm Sarah, her sister. I'm a graphic designer," she said, lifting her chin. Before he could respond, Ryan's mother, Karen, glided over. She was perfectly preserved, with blonde hair pulled into a tight, agonizing-looking bun and diamonds in her ears that looked heavy. She was wrapped in a silk dress that shimmered, and her smile was a terrifying, brilliant white slash that did not, under any circumstances, reach her eyes. "Oh, Emily and Sarah," she cooed, drawing out the names. "Ryan has told us so much about you." Her eyes did a quick, dismissive scan of us. She zeroed in on my dress, the one I'd spent a week's pay on. "What a brave color, dear. It's so wonderful you girls made the effort." I didn't know how to respond. "It's a beautiful home, Mrs. Thompson." "Yes, it is," she said, already looking past me for someone more important. "Do try the champagne, it's vintage." The rest of the guests, about 10 of them, were all cut from the same cloth. Older, wealthier, and dressed in quiet, expensive fabrics. Sarah and I were, by a significant margin, the youngest people there, apart from Ryan. We were eventually ushered into a dining room that could have seated 30. The table was a long, dark stretch of polished wood, set with so much silver I didn't know where to start. The small talk was tense. It was a minefield of where do you summer? And are you a skiing family or a sailing family? I tried to be honest. My family's idea of a vacation was usually renting a cabin by a lake for a week. It was lovely. Karen Thompson gave a small, tinkling laugh. "How rustic. I don't think I've ever rented a cabin. We've had our place in the Hamptons since Robert's grandfather built it." Sarah, bless her heart, tried to find common ground. She had seen an ad for a new contemporary art exhibit downtown and tried to bring it up. "The new exhibit at the Rivington Gallery looks fascinating. I'm a designer, so I'm always following the new visual artists." Karen waved her hand dismissively, cutting her off. "Oh, we don't really bother with those little public galleries. They're so crowded. We're patrons of the National Museum, of course. Robert sits on the board. We find it's better to support real, established art." Sarah's face tightened, but she said nothing. I just wanted the meal to end. Then the main topic of conversation turned to business. Robert was talking about a potential new acquisition for their company, a development project in a part of the city known as the Warehouse District. It was an up-and-coming area, full of old industrial buildings being converted into lofts, studios, and cool restaurants. "I'm not convinced, Robert," another man said. "The infrastructure is lacking." Robert grunted. "The infrastructure can be built. It's the element that concerns me." This is when Karen leaned forward, placing her manicured hand on her husband's arm. She laughed that same high, tinkling sound. "Robert, darling, why are you even looking over there? It's dreadful." She turned her gaze to the table at large. "It's all just. You know, full of those transient artist types. It's all just low-class poor people. You can't build a luxury brand on that." A cold, heavy silence fell over the room. I could feel the heat rising in my face. It was so blatant, so unbelievably cruel. And then she made it personal. She looked directly at me and Sarah. Her smile was gone, replaced by a look of cold assessment. "No offense, girls," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "but people should really stick to their own kind. Don't you think it just works better that way? It avoids confusion." My blood turned to ice. It wasn't a slip-up. It was a message. She was telling me and my sister that we were the low-class poor people. She was just describing that we didn't belong. Sarah's eyes filled with hot, angry tears, but she didn't look away. She glared right back at Karen. I looked at Ryan. He was staring at his plate. His jaw was tight. His face was pale. He saw it. He heard it. And he did and said absolutely nothing. Robert just nodded at his wife. "The demographics are problematic. I agree. That was it. I was done. I very slowly, very deliberately, placed my napkin on the table. The silver clinked softly against the china. Sarah, I said, my voice perfectly level. We're leaving. Karen Thompson's eyes widened in mock surprise. Oh dear, did I say something to offend? You said exactly what you meant, Mrs. Thompson, I said, pushing my chair back. Thank you for the dinner. I stood up. Sarah stood up with me. Emily, wait. Ryan said, finally looking up, his voice a low plea. I didn't wait. I turned and walked out of the dining room. Sarah was right behind me. We grabbed our coats from the housekeeper, who looked startled. Ryan followed us out onto the dark driveway, catching my arm. Emily, stop, please. I wrenched my arm away. Don't touch me. Look, that's just how she is, he said, his voice desperate. She's from a different generation. She didn't mean it like that. She meant it exactly like that, Ryan. I said, my voice shaking with a cold rage I didn't know I possessed. She looked right at my sister and me and called us poor and low. Lass, and you just sat there and let her. What was I supposed to do? He almost shouted. Start a war at my father's dinner table. It's complicated. No, it's not. I said. I pulled out my phone to call an Uber, my hands shaking. It's the simplest thing in the world. You either stand with them or you stand with me, and you just made your choice. The Uber arrived 20 minutes later. We rode back to our small apartment in complete silence. The 2 dresses we'd bought felt like costumes. When we got inside, Sarah finally broke down and cried. I just stood in my kitchen, the adrenaline draining away, leaving behind a cold, hard knot of humiliation. And that humiliation was quickly hardening into something else, resolve. The next morning, my phone was a mess of notifications. 12 missed calls from Ryan, a string of texts. Emily, please call me. I'm so sorry. That was awful. My mother is just. She's from another time. Please let me come over. We can talk about this. Don't let one bad night ruin what we have. I let the text sit there for an hour, my anger cooling into a kind of clinical clarity. What did we have? A fun 6 weeks, built on a lie. The lie was that he was different from them. The truth was, he was just a coward, and a coward is worse than a bully. A coward enables the bully, I called him. He picked up on the first ring, a rush of Emily, thank God. I cut him off. My voice was professional, almost detached. It was the same voice I use for crisis management calls at work. Ryan, I'm calling to tell you that we're done. I cannot be with someone who thinks it's acceptable for his family to treat me, or anyone, like that. And I definitely can't be with someone who sits by silently while it happens. Emily, no, please, he begged. What was I supposed to do, my father? His business. It's complicated. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Ryan. I said, it's not complicated at all. It's simple. You chose them, and I'm choosing me. Good. Bye. I hung up and blocked his number. I blocked him on every social media platform. It was a clean, surgical cut. Sarah, who was sitting on the couch nursing a large mug of tea, looked at me with red, puffy eyes. Just like that. I said. He's weak, and I don't have time for weak men. I threw myself into work. It was my shield. I had a massive, career-defining project on my plate. My agency was pitching a new, enormous client. A European luxury lifestyle brand called Aura was planning a massive expansion into the United States, and they were looking for one agency to handle their entire digital launch strategy. This was our whale. Winning it would change everything for our company and for me. My boss, Mark, had put me in charge of the pitch team. Emily, this is the one. He'd said on Friday, they're ambitious, they're modern, and they have a massive budget. Their main competitor in the U.S. market is a legacy brand, a real dinosaur, a company called Thompson Holdings. The name, which had barely registered on Friday, now hit me like a physical blow. Thompson Holdings, Robert's company, Karen's inheritance, Ryan's future. I felt a dizzying rush of adrenaline. Mark, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I need everything we have on Thompson Holdings. All their financials, their annual reports, their ad campaigns for the last 5 years. I want to know them inside and out. Good call, Mark said, oblivious. Know the enemy. Aura is targeting their market, so we need to know exactly where the Thompson brand is weak. Oh, I think I have a few ideas, I muttered. For the next week, I lived in a cave of data. I barely slept. I ate at my desk. I downloaded every public financial report, every shareholder letter, every press release from Thompson Holdings, and the secret I found wasn't some dark conspiracy. It was hiding in plain sight, written in the boring language of financial statements. Thompson Holdings was not a thriving empire. It was a dinosaur, and it was dying. Their core business, the massive, stuffy department stores, was hemorrhaging money. Their customer base was literally dying off. Their attempts to go digital were a joke. Their website was clunky and looked like it was designed in 2005. They were drowning in brick and mortar overhead and pension obligations. I remembered Robert at the dinner table. The demographics are problematic. He wasn't talking about the warehouse district. He was talking about his own company. Then I found it, the smoking gun. For the last 2 years, Thompson Holdings had been pouring tens of millions of dollars into one last desperate gamble, a new, youthful sub-brand called TH Signature. It was their attempt to capture the 25-45 affluent market. And it was a spectacular, unmitigated failure. The branding was all wrong. It was condescending. The ad copy was full of phrases like, "For those who appreciate true refinement," and "elegance isn't for everyone." It was Karen Thompson's entire personality distilled into a brand voice. They were terrified. Ryan's It's Complicated wasn't about family drama. It was about financial ruin, and Aura, the client I was pitching, was their direct competitor. Aura was everything TH Signature was trying to be: modern, quiet luxury, sustainable and digitally native. The acquisition Robert was discussing at dinner. They weren't trying to acquire Aura. Aura was the asteroid, and they were the dinosaur. Aura's successful U.S. launch wouldn't just be competition. It would be an extinction-level event for TH Signature, and a potentially fatal blow to Thompson Holdings itself. I looked at the notes I'd scribbled from the dinner party. Low-class poor people, stick to their own kind, the demographics are problematic. It wasn't just an insult, it was their entire failed business strategy. And I was now in the unique position of being the only marketing manager in the city who had a perfect, unvarnished look at the desperate, bigoted, and terrified mindset of Aura's #1 competitor. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. "Okay, Karen," I whispered to the empty office, "let's talk about marketing." My brain was on fire. I didn't just have data, I had context. I had the why. I spent the entire weekend connecting the dots. Thompson Holdings wasn't just a company, it was the physical manifestation of Karen and Robert's worldview. Their entire business model was built on exclusion. They didn't sell products, they sold scorn. They sold the privilege of not being one of the low-class poor people. And in the modern economy, that model was poison. The TH Signature brand was the perfect example. Their ads featured models who looked bored and angry, staring disdainfully at the camera. The products were gaudy, covered in logos. They were marketing to an idea of new money that was 2 decades out of date. They were trying to sell the Hamptons to a generation that valued Austin. Aura, by contrast, was all about inclusive luxury. Their whole vibe was craftsmanship, sustainability, and community. They didn't sell exclusive. They sold authentic. I went back to the warehouse district comment, Robert's concern about the element there. I did a quick search. Sure enough, there were 3 articles in business journals speculating that the warehouse district was the front runner location for Aura's flagship U.S. store. My God, the Thompsons weren't looking to build there. They were trying to block Aura. They were probably trying to buy up the real estate to stop their competitor from getting a foothold. It was a defensive, desperate, and incredibly expensive move. This family, this company, genuinely believed that the 99% were not just worthless as people, but worthless as consumers. They were ignoring the single most powerful force in modern branding, aspiration. The fatal flaw of the Thompson empire was this. They thought luxury was about building a fortress and insulting everyone on the outside. They didn't understand that true, modern luxury is about building a beautiful garden and making everyone on the outside wish they could be invited in. Aura got that. The Thompsons, with their stick-to-your-own-kind mentality, never would. I now knew my enemy. I knew their fears. I knew their failed strategies. And I knew their motivation was an outdated, toxic snobbery. I opened a new presentation file. I wasn't just pitching for Aura anymore. I was pitching against the Thompsons. I called Sarah, who had been sending me worried texts. "Hey, are you free this weekend? For you, always. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay, Sarah. I'm inspired," I said. "I need your help. I need the best design work of your life. I'm putting together a pitch, and I want you to be the one to mock it up." "Is this for the Aura thing?" she asked. "It is, but it's also for us," I said. "How would you like to help me design the campaign that's going to dismantle the Thompson family business?" There was a beat of silence. Then, "Oh my God, Em, I'm bringing my laptop. I'm also bringing wine." For the next 72 hours, we barely slept. We turned my apartment into a war room. We papered the walls with Aura's aesthetic and TH Signature's failed ads. Sarah's talent was explosive. She immediately grasped the visual language I was fumbling for. "They're cold," she said, pointing to a TH Signature ad. "It's all blue light and harsh angles. It's repellent. Aura is all warm light, natural textures, soft focus. It's inviting." "Exactly," I said. "The Thompsons are selling status. We're going to sell belonging." By Sunday night, we had it. It wasn't just a pitch. It was a masterpiece. It was a direct surgical strike aimed at the rotting heart of the Thompson empire. And it was all built on the very words Karen Thompson had used to insult us. Chapter 5, the marketing campaign they never saw coming on Monday. I presented the initial strategy to my boss, Mark, and the rest of the agency's senior partners.
Mark?
I started, everyone pitching Aura is going to show them the same thing. They'll show them spreadsheets, demographic charts, and media buy-in rates. That's what the Thompsons would do. It's boring, and it's not what Aura is about. We can't just sell them marketing. We have to sell them a movement. I clicked to the first slide. It was a stark, black-hand, white photo of a cold, gated mansion, identical to the Thompsons. Over it, in bold, severe text, "The Old Guard." "This," I said, "is the current state of American luxury. It's a fortress, it's cold, it's exclusive, and it's dying." I clicked to the next slide. It was one of Sarah's mock-ups. A vibrant, warm, cinematic shot of a diverse group of friends, artists, tech entrepreneurs, young professionals, all ages, all backgrounds, laughing around a beautifully set dinner table in a rustic, converted warehouse loft. The Aura logo was subtle, embossed on a leather journal on the table. The text was soft and welcoming, the new luxury. "And this," I said, "is where we're going. Aura isn't just a brand, it's a community. Our campaign slogan isn't a slogan, it's a mission statement." I clicked again. "Luxury is not exclusive, it's inclusive." The room was silent. "We won't just market to the wealthy." I continued, my voice ringing with confidence. "We will build a community. We will use authentic micro-influencers, not just mega celebrities. We will sponsor art co-ops, not just polo matches. We will focus on craftsmanship, sustainability, and the stories behind the products." Then I got to the secret weapon slides. The dinosaur in the room, Thompson Holdings' fatal flaw. I laid it all out. Their failed TH Signature brand, their financial desperation, their bleeding department stores, and then I summarized their brand voice. Thompson Holdings' entire strategy is built on insulting 99% of the population. Their message is, "You are not good enough for us." Our message will be, "You deserve us." I could see Mark leaning forward, his eyes wide. "And now for the warehouse district play," I said. "The Thompsons are trying to buy up the block to stop Aura from building a flagship. They're playing a defensive, old, money game we're not going to play." I unveiled the master stroke. "We're not going to build one massive, expensive flagship. Instead, we're going to launch a series of high-profile, agile pop-up shops." I clicked to a map of the U.S. "But we're not putting them on Fifth Avenue or Rodeo Drive. We're putting them in the emerging, creative class neighborhoods, the Warehouse District, the Arts District in L.A., the West Loop in Chicago, the exact kind of places the Old Guard would call low class." I let the words hang in the air. We're going to prove that luxury isn't a location. It's a mindset. We will go where the creativity is. We won't wait for them to come to us. It's bold, it's agile, and it will make the Thompsons' massive, empty department stores look like the mausoleums they are. When I finished, there was a long pause. Mark finally spoke, his voice hushed. "Emily, this is aggressive." "It's a multi-million-dollar account, Mark," I said, meeting his gaze. "Aggressive is what wins." Mark stared at the presentation for another 10 seconds. Then he broke into a massive grin. "My God, I love it. Let's go win this thing." 2 days later, our team was in New York in a sleek glass-walled boardroom high above Manhattan, pitching to Aura's entire executive team. The CEO was a sharp, impeccably dressed woman in her late 40s. They had the weary look of people who had been listening to boring pitches all week. Then I started. I didn't just present, I performed. I was fueled by 2 months of frustration, a lifetime of being underestimated, and the cold, hard anger from that dinner party. I was passionate. I was authentic. When I got to the dinosaur in the room slide, I saw the Aura CEO sit bolt upright. She leaned forward, her eyes locked on me. I never made it personal. I never mentioned the dinner. I never used the names Robert or Karen. I didn't have to. I just presented the facts of the TH Signature brand's failure. Your competition's mindset is their single greatest liability, I said, my voice ringing with conviction. They believe luxury is a wall to keep people out. We believe it's a table to invite people to, and we are going to build the biggest, most welcoming table in the United States. After the presentation, the Q&A was intense. The CEO drilled me on logistics, on numbers, on the pop-up strategy. Finally, she leveled a sharp look at me. You seem to have a very intimate understanding of Thomson Holdings' corporate mindset, MS Emily. I met her gaze without flinching. I'm a marketing manager. It's my job to understand the competition, and their mindset is written in every bad ad they run and every quarterly report they file. They are telling their customers, you're not good enough for us. We're just the first ones to be brave enough to believe them and to build a strategy to counter it. She smiled, a real, genuine smile. Thank you, we'll be in touch. We flew home that night. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. The call came at 4:00 p.m. the next day. Mark called me into his office. He was pale. My heart sank. We'd lost Mark. He stared at me for a second, then his face split into a grin so wide it looked like it hurt. Emily, he said, his voice choking. I just got off the phone with Aura. We got it. I grabbed the back of a chair, my knees buckling. Oh my God, that's not all, he said, holding up a finger. They're not just giving us the digital launch. They were so blown away by your competitive analysis and the pop-up strategy that they're giving us the entire US media budget. Digital, print, broadcast, events, everything, the whole thing. This was an atom bomb. It wasn't just a multi-million-dollar account, it was a $10 million account. It would double the size of our agency. My commission, my personal commission on this, would be life-changing. Mark, Wait, he said, his face suddenly serious. There's one more thing, I got another call about an hour ago from Robert Thompson. My blood ran cold. What? He'd heard we were in the running. He called to warn me about Aura, said they were an unstable European brand, all fluff, no substance, standard bluster. Then he must have gotten the news that they'd made their choice, because he called back 10 minutes ago. He was incandescent. He was screaming. He said you used proprietary information, that you slandered his company. I used public financial reports and their own failed ad campaigns. I said, my voice shaking, it's all public domain. He's just furious he got outplayed. Mark smiled. That's almost exactly what I told him. He said, you'll be hearing from my lawyers. I told him I looked forward to it and hung up. He walked around his desk and stood in front of me. The Aura CEO told me their board was on the fence about the scale of the US launch. Your pitch, your specific dinosaur analysis, convinced them to double their investment, specifically to target TH Signature's remaining market share. You didn't just win a client, Emily, you just actively, personally, sank their biggest competitor's last-ditch effort. That is what cost them millions. The story's title says, 2 weeks later I walked to the bank. This is that day. The last 2 weeks have been an absolute whirlwind. True to his word, Robert Thompson sent a menacing legal letter. Our agency's lawyers sent back a one-paragraph response that essentially said all our information was public, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. It was a legal brush-off. We never heard from them again. The news hit the marketing trade papers immediately. Aura taps mid-sized agency for aggressive U.S. launch. Thomson Holdings' TH Signature brand faces formidable new competitor. The financial analysts were not kind. Thomson stock took a nosedive. Commentators were ruthless, citing the company's antiquated branding and failure to innovate. They were calling our Aura campaign the new gold standard before we had even launched a single ad. TH Signature, Robert's legacy project, was declared dead on arrival. They pulled all funding. The millions they had already spent were just gone. In the midst of this chaos, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Emily, it's Ryan. His voice was strained, thin. All the charm was gone. I have nothing to say to you, Ryan. I said, my voice cold. You did this, he stammered. You knew what you were doing. You deliberately targeted my family. I had to laugh, but it was a bitter, sharp sound. I did my job, Ryan. I built a winning strategy for my client based on public data, the same way you, as a management consultant, would advise one of your clients. The fact that your family's entire business strategy is built on bigotry, incompetence, and insulting their customers, that's not my fault. That's theirs. My father. He's a broken man. Ryan's voice cracked. My mother. This is ruining them. The Signature brand was my father's legacy project. They've lost millions, all because you were offended at a dinner party. The sheer audacity of it, the victim, blaming, snapped the last thread of any pity I might have had. No, Ryan, they lost millions because they are bad at business, and because they are terrible, cruel people. Your mother looked my sister and me in the eye in your home and called us loc, last poor people. She tried to humiliate us, and you, her son, my date, sat there and said nothing. Validated her. I'm sorry about that, Emily, I really am, but this is business. You're right, Ryan, it is business, I said. And it turns out I'm very, very good at it. Your mother should have been more careful. She gave her competition's future marketing manager the single greatest piece of motivation I've ever had. Tell her I said thank you. I hung up. I blocked the number. I felt nothing but a profound sense of closure. And now today, 2 weeks after that disastrous dinner, my first commission check from the Aura account hit my bank account this morning. The number had so many zeros, I had to stare at it for 5 minutes. It was more money than my parents had made in the last 5 years combined. The title is literal. I put on my best suit, a new one, a very expensive one. I didn't just transfer the money. I walked to the bank. I had an appointment, not with a teller, but with a private wealth manager. I walked there with Sarah. We'd stopped for coffee on the way. She was grinning from ear to ear. She was also newly employed. Our agency had hired her full-time as a senior designer for the Aura account. So, Sarah said, raising her coffee cup in a toast as we walked, low-class poor people, huh? I smiled, sipping my latte. Turns out, we just have very, very expensive taste. We walked into the main branch of the bank. I bypassed the main line and went straight to the private wealth management offices, the section with the thick carpets, the dark wood paneling, and the quiet leather chairs. The part of the bank I never even knew existed. A man in a perfect suit stood up. MS Emily, we've been expecting you. The revenge was never just about the money. It was about proving them wrong. They looked at me and Sarah and saw less. They saw low class, transient, poor. They judged us, dismissed us, and insulted us. In the end, I used their own bigotry as the blueprint for their destruction. I took the class they were so obsessed with and showed them that character, talent, and hard work were the only currency that mattered. My dignity was intact, my sister was thriving, and my bank account, well, that was just a very, very nice bonus.